Hey guys, my name is PK from Almost Inevitable Design, and today we're going to learn about responsive web typography. Now, I've recorded this 4 times already. I just wanted to do this in one continuous go, and I realized that I was talking way too much about other things that are details that you don't actually need. All you need is a copy pastable solution and just some explanation on why it works, and that'll work, right? Oh, and some proof that it actually does work. So we're gonna get right into it, right? You can tell it's gonna be continuous by this lamp, this color changing lamp, and it's not gonna get cut. Hopefully, we'll see. If I edit it and you'll see the thing jump, the colors jump, and I'm gonna jump, then it means it's been edited. All right. Well, in order to get good responsive web typography, most important thing is size, right? So if you're on a desktop, the screen sizes are a certain width, which is what we mean when we use, which is what we consider when we use media queries, right? So it has a certain width, and the text has to be a certain proportion to that screen size. And then you go down into mobile, and it has to at least stay a certain size for it to be at the same hierarchy in terms of size and also to be readable, right? Now, so let's say, for example, if you have an H1, right? Then that H1, if you want like a 60 pixel size for H1 like this, as you see here, then it would be 3.125 VW. All right. Now, a lot of people say VWs are good. It's not a bad idea. Because it takes the width of the viewport. That's what VW means. It takes the width of the viewport and it gets a ratio. So 100 VW is 100% of that screen width, which means if you change the screen size, well, the viewport size, so the browser size, then the VW unit changes with it. It's 1% of that width, which is good. But the problem is if you go into mobile, then the screen becomes portrait as opposed to landscape on desktop. And then it becomes way too narrow and it becomes too small, right? So the same 3.125 VW is 11 pixels on a phone, right? And if you use like an iMac or a larger screen, like a 4K, 6K, then you get like 80 pixels. It becomes way too large and unruly depending on the design. And the main reason why this is a problem is because of two things. One, we just talked about portrait, landscape, orientation difference. That's a main thing. Another thing is we use containers, right? Text usually stays inside a container. There are full width sections, but a lot of times text will stay inside a container. Paragraphs and headings will stay inside a column. So it's restricted by that size, which means it can't just scale everything, right? So we need to find a better way to do that. And one way is to use media queries. Now, there will be container queries, media queries that take the container size, but that's an experimental stage. We haven't come to that yet. And even then, so it will take a bit of work. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to find something that doesn't do this, just the whole thing. But what we're going to try to find something that looks like this. All right. So it will not become any larger than a certain size when the screen becomes a certain size. In this case, I put up 1280. So 1280 across would be regular laptop size. No, not that. So smaller laptops sometimes have 1280. Some Surfaces, I think, they might have that. I don't know. 1440 is another size that a lot of laptops use. 1280 is the absolute minimum size a laptop would normally have. So I'm going with that. 650 is enough to catch all mobile devices. I think most larger phones, when in portrait, would be 550 pixels across. They're usually 1080 actual pixels, but it is counted at 540. So 550 is usually the right size. 650 is just a safe catch-all, depending on how many retina pixels you have and stuff. Okay, So let's say, for example, we have a 54 down to 24. It could be 60, it could be 30, it doesn't really matter, but that's what I'm doing. So you would actually have to plot something, and you get the coefficient here, the factor, the incline, the delta. Those are all depending on what math. But this is plotted at 650, 24, 1280, 54, and you get a number that shows the delta, right? And then after that, it's just straight lines. Okay, we're going to do that. Now, a really easy way to do that, which is a really nice new CSS property that was introduced a few years ago, but it works on all modern browsers. Okay, so let's say, for example, H1. H1 is font size, and we want it to be between 24 and 54. So we're going to use something called clamp. All right. Now clamp takes three numbers. It takes the minimum and the interim and the large. All right. So it's going to be 24 pixels, and we'll get to this in a second. I'll just do 33 VW. That won't work. And 54 pixels. Okay. Now this 33. It shouldn't be 33. Can be something like this, 3.125. Right? So we'll put that in there for now. 3.125. Okay? So what that does is it will keep things at 54. It won't go over 54 until it hits that point where 3.125 VW and 54 are the same, which is essentially what this is, right? It'll be the same. And then it'll start doing 3.125 until 3.125 is the same size as 24. Because the screen becomes smaller, 3.125 will become smaller. And that means there's a point where it'll be the same as 24, and then once it hits 24, it won't go below that. Okay? So this is essentially the same thing as this. This line in between is 3.125. That 24, 24, and 54. Okay? Now, like I said, it works in modern browsers. It doesn't work in Internet Explorer 11, for example. There's a car, like we live in a really quiet suburb, but still there are cars at this time. Anyways, it won't work in Internet Explorer 11, which means it will not have a font size at Internet Explorer 11, which is not very useful, right? And we should always code so it's scalable and as compatible as possible, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try something like this. Add a calc. Now, calcs work well. Calcs work surprisingly well in Internet Explorer 11. A lot of people keep thinking Internet Explorer IE 11 is really old and nothing works. That is not true. The main things that don't work are clamps, blending modes, and grid. As long as you stay away from those, IE 11 can support pretty much everything. Flexbox works, calc works, you can do a lot. SVGs work, that's fine. So IE 11 is actually, it's not good, but it's not too bad. It's not too hard to support. So what we're going to do is something like this. Let's try something a little smaller. 2.8893 VW. It doesn't matter. These smaller numbers really don't matter that much. I just put them in there. Sometimes I sneak in like a funny number. But anyways, like 42. You need a space between the plus, and then let's try something like 0.9 rem. All right. So 0.9 rem would be 16 times 0.9, which is what, 14, something like that, 14 point something. So that keeps it at least 14. Add like 10, right? And then you get this size, right? So let's say, for example, that would be something like 50, and then you add 14 to it. Okay, so it doesn't go below a certain size, And you're not only just relying on this, you actually have that as a platform to shoot off of. Okay, so that's good. Now you don't have to worry about mobile because nobody can use IE11 on mobile, so it really doesn't matter. But if that mobile phone is so bad that it doesn't support clamp, which is impossible, but still doesn't support clamp, it'll still use the calc. Now, if you use just these two lines, you don't need any media queries. Done. All right, so I'll keep going. All right. Now these numbers, these calculations are just an estimate. You saw how I just came up with any random ass number, and that would, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna introduce you to a whole new system where you can actually do all of this in a really precise way. Yeah, sounds good? Cool. So that is called Sass. Okay, now this is what it looks like. That is what it looks like. What? What? All right, so that is what it looks like. That is Sass. All right, this whole thing is one mixin that I made. It's called a mixin. Mixins are macros for the Sass world. Okay, you make a mixin and then you include it into a CSS rule. Then it does everything it needs to do as a macro and then spits out the result. Okay, now I'm not going to explain this to you because it was a lot of work getting there, but it is essentially doing this. That's it. It's just you put in 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers and you get these 2 points and then you get all those lines. So you get a clamp out of this, and it will also make you a usable calc. Okay, that's what this does. Now, this is based off of pixels. I can make it based off of rems. I have made one that is based off of rems because for me, when I do responsive code work, responsive styling, then I actually change the size of the rems as well as everything else. Like the fonts actually change with the rem. So it's a little different, but pixels are easy to understand. They are clear. And this is, I think, good enough that it will blow pretty much any competition, any other solution out there out of the water because it goes through all of that. All right. And I found some people actually doing this. This is done independently because if you do see that, you'll see the calculations and the methods are a little different in how you get there. But essentially, you're plotting these 2 points and then rounding them up and then getting a calc and a clamp. Okay, so that's not important now. Well, that's easy. I mean, you don't need to worry about that because you're going to copy paste that. So you don't need to worry about it at all. I did that for you. This is free. If you want to learn more, check out my courses. Yeah. All right. So I'll get to that in a minute. All right. Now, because we're still in Sass, this here, like selector, and then another like that is actually, this is actually the same as this. Okay, so that means if all you need to do is just change this one word main, and you can change the parent selector for all of them. So I have everything here, H1, H2, H3, H4, H blah, 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 right? And that's all you need to do. All you need to do is just change this, okay? Depending on what you're using, and I made a few sets of these, right? So that's Wix. I had to go to Wix to check this out. Wix, you can use hashtag Octothorpe ID, site root, Webflow. It's hard to find it, so you have to use body with the class body, and so on and so forth. Shopify, if you're using Debut, that's what it is. Squarespace, Site Wrapper, or Page, they all have this, and this is pretty much what they use. Now, if you want to use them only, if you want to use responsive typography only in the blog and not on the page, not in the page builder, you can target just the blogs. All right, and that is done through an inspector. And all you need to do is just find which one you need to target. I'll show you just a really quick example in a minute, but we're going to try to get I'll put this out of the way for a minute. We're going to try to get this to work. Okay, so copy all that and put it into, now Sass is compiled. You write this and it will do all the calculations and spit out the answer for you, so it's compiling. All right, so that means you'll need something that will compile for you, and it's going to take a bit of time for you to set everything up and actually run your compiler or processor. So we're just going to use this Sassmeister. All right, paste that in here and you're done. Right, I'm just going to close this because you don't need to worry about it. All you need to do now is @include awesome pixel sizes, and it takes 4 numbers. All right, it takes 4 numbers. It takes desktop size, desktop pixel, so that's desktop size, desktop pixel, and of course mobile size, mobile pixel, which is mobile size, mobile pixel. Right, so that means you want it to be in desktop, it is desktop size is 120, 1280, and on desktop it's 54. You don't need to write pixels because all we need are numbers to calculate. And 650, 24. Bam, done. All the calculations done for you, and this I guarantee you will work for H1s. Cool. There's a couple more things that I really want to talk. I'm trying to finish this in 20 minutes. It might go to 25. I'm going to go through this real quickly. Now, with good web typography, you need a few more things. All right, you need, copy this, paste that somewhere. Doesn't matter. You need a few more things. You need good leading, you need kerning, you need tracking maybe, and you need good margins and spacing, right? But you can't kern in CSS because all it does is tracking, which is kerning is between the letters, depending on, like IL needs a certain amount of kerning, whereas you have like O and R, where the R touches the O and you need different kerning. That's kerning. Tracking is just the difference, the space between the letters. It's done in percentages and not separately done between letters. So kerning has to be done inside the font. So hopefully you're using a good font that has at least a good amount of proper kerning. Okay, so using like cheap DaFont stuff doesn't guarantee it has at least acceptable kerning. You got to use at least something like Google fonts or Adobe fonts, or just buy like really expensive nice fonts from My Fonts or something. All right, anyways, no kerning. You can use leading though, and you can use tracking. Okay, tracking is letter spacing and margins. We'll talk about margins in a minute. So let's add some of that. In terms of leading, what you can do is you can use line height, IGHT, line height. And with line height, I've seen people use stuff like this. Now that is an absolute amount. It's an absolute, pixels are absolute units. So you can use that, but you're going to end up using more media queries. So we're not going to do that. We're going to use something like 1.2. That means 1.2, 120% of whatever font size it is it's displaying at the moment. Okay, so that makes it responsive because it's always at a right multiple, right? Cool, that's good. We're getting along really well now. Tracking, if you need tracking for the text. Now, one thing you need to remember about tracking, if you make it tracked out too much, the first letter, so tracking works like this. This side is fixed. If you're using a language from left to right, this side is fixed. The letter spacing goes like that, as opposed to regular when we track, it goes like this. All right, so you do that or you do this. This is how normal tracking works. Letter spacing in CSS works like that. Okay, so don't go too overboard with this. And if you need to center the heading with really widely tracked out text, then consider making it an inline block and adding padding on that side just to center it. Okay, so letter spacing. Now with letter spacing, what you can do is you can use a percentage. right? And as for percentages, what I mean by that is you can use an M unit, right? So 0.5 M, for example. Now in an M unit, 1 M is the font size. Okay, so you see font size here? That is the size of 1 M. All right, so each heading can have a different M size. Rem sizes are root M, which means it's fixed. M sizes are proportionate, are relative to that particular text at that moment. So if you use 0.5 M, that is 50% of the font size. If the font size is 54, then it is 27 is 0.5. So we're not going to do like 0.5. We're going to do something like 5%. That's enough, right? And what else we got? We got margins. Now, because we can use M's, we can use margins like this. Margin, top 2M, because I think if you have a heading, because I'm just talking about blogs and general typography. If you have text, the paragraph above it would be less related to this than the paragraph below it, because people read from top down, right? So 2M on top, 0, 0. So it's top right, bottom up, bottom left. So 0, 1M, and 0. 2, 0, 1, 0. Okay, there you go. This takes care of pretty much everything. No media queries. Just do this once and you're done. Okay, now let's apply this. While we're applying this, like I said, all these work. Like if you're using Divi, just put ETBOC in front, like this. Just take that, ETBOC, C, and that'll work. That will work on Divi. Everything inside the builder will just follow that H1. Okay. If you want to make it to a blog, then you got to find the the selector for blog. Easy way to do it would be single if you're using WordPress. That ensures that it's in all the blogs. If you're using just Gutenberg and not a builder, single will work. That will work for WordPress. Now, Shopify is not Shopify. Squarespace is the only one that I actually want to talk about right now. Why? Not because I like Squarespace in particular. I mean, it's not the worst. There are many, many more worse page builders, site builders, but the reason why is because Shopify does not use CSS. It uses a certain type of CSS, but it doesn't use CSS raw. Okay, vanilla CSS. What that means is Squarespace. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. So Squarespace. Nope, not settings. So if you don't use Squarespace, if you use WordPress, you don't need to worry about this part that I'm talking about. But all right. So it looks like it's CSS, but it's actually not. It actually uses a pre-processing language called LESS. It's LESS. So like I use Sass. This is SASS. I actually technically use SCSS. We'll get to that in a second. But they use LESS, which means, and it calculates. So even if you use it like this, these calculations don't work. So what you need to do is put it inside quotation marks and put a little wavy mark, a tilde in front. Okay? Inside, this only applies to calcs. Whoops. This only applies to calcs. Okay? That's what you need to do. So it takes everything inside the quotation mark and uses it verbatim and doesn't calculate it. All right? So we take that, put that in there. You know what? Make that H2. And you can see that that is affected, right? So for example, now it's hard to inspect it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect it in a incognito browser, right? And we're going to refresh this, open up the inspector like that. Now you can see the font size here. We're going to go find, I'll leave that right there so you can see it. Now we're going to go find, and go find that H2. That's the H2 that we just changed. So you can see that our new CSS is applied, right? Those quotation marks are taken out, as you can see. You don't see the quotation marks here, right? Like I said, it's because it's less, and you need to put a quotation mark so that doesn't scrunch up and calculate itself, right? So that's fine. Now, we were intending to make it 54 at 1280, right? So let's stretch this out and see where we are. So that's over 1280. That is 54. Yeah? Cool. Maybe put it to 1280 and you'll see that it's still 54, right? Anything below starts changing. You can see that, right? Yeah? Goes all the way down. And also you can see that it has, margins on top and on bottom. The margin you can see is 80 here, which is double the font size, just as we wanted, right? Line height is 1.2 out of 40. It's exactly 1.2, 120%. So it's pretty good, right? It works really well, right? I can take it down to, let's take this down to 650. So it's still calculating until we hit 650, and it is exactly 24. So we have full control. That is exactly what this was doing, right? So good. I know, it's so good. All right, if you're doing this in WordPress, you don't need to worry about that quotation marks. Don't worry about that. Just copy paste this as is, okay? Like I said, depends on what builder you're using. If you're using Elementor, you can use just ID main if you need to. If you're doing a blog, like I said, single will also work because WordPress automatically adds a class of single to the blog pages. So it's up to you. Go into the inspector. Like I said, I'll show you how I find the right one in, nope, not here. Find the right one in here, right? So this is where the text is, right? Now you can actually change this depending on the page. If you don't want this to apply to the header, then just look here. That's the header. All you want to do is go to main, right? Because that the part that lights up is that. So header is there, and this is separate. So all you need to do is target hashtag page if you wanted to. You can also target hashtag sections. I mean class sections. There's only one section, which is why. Oh yeah, so this is the whole thing. Yeah, sections. You can do that. Like I said, if this is WordPress, you're gonna have to go find this on your own. It's a lot easier if it is something that you can add if you wanted to. For example, if you're doing in Oxygen, inner content will have a double digit and a single digit number. You can also add your class to it in Oxygen to the inner content block. For example, you can do that in Divi, Elementor, Beaver. So as long as you get the parent selector done right, parent selector, as long as you get that selected right, everything else will just fall into place and it will always work. So that is, I think, really awesome, and I think does a great job of everything. It actually takes care of everything, right? So yeah, hope you like it. Now, I have a few minutes that I'm allowed to talk about some of my products. Now, if you come to my website, almostinevitable.com, I have some courses. Okay. Now, these courses, some of them are for beginners, some of them are for intermediate, like Crashiest CSS Crash Course. This is something that I offered last year with my presentation. I also have like Learn CSS for Divi. This is a little more advanced than Crashiest because Crashiest is like the bare bones, but this is all you really need to start. If you want it to be more specific, like for Divi, then you can take that. If you want it to be responsive, you can take this. you can get the whole package if you wanted to. If you need to learn how to use the inspector, take that. That's a free course pretty much because you set a price. A lot of people end up putting in 0, which is fine. You can learn how to use localhost like MAMP. That's fine. Now, it took me a very long time, but I've come out with 2 new courses, learning SCSS and learning how to make custom themes. You can actually make custom themes from ground up, and it will do everything you want and nothing that you don't need. So there's absolutely no bloat. All the custom themes that I've made have loaded on a normal server, shared servers, just loaded in like half a second, and there's absolutely no bloat. All the image sizes, the alts, everything is taken care of, and the client has to do nothing. All they need to do is just drop in an image, drop in some text, and the whole site just works. And I actually go through a whole course on building actually this website. I build this website from scratch, from the original InDesign proof all the way to the end. So I build this whole website, and that is, everything is super responsive, everything works really well, and you learn how to make templates, you learn how to make all these animations work, everything from scratch. And this is a custom theme. You can inspect it, and you'll actually see things like this. WDH column, WDH row, Wilson Designer Homes row. Everything is custom. So that is a pretty nice experience for the clients, right? So you get to learn that. You get to learn how to do this. Now, if you don't want to go that deep, and all you need is just to learn how to style things really well, whatever you use, whether it's Oxygen, especially for WordPress, because like I said, Squarespace is less. You can use this for Shopify if you need to. I don't talk about that here, but exact same principles. The reason why I say WordPress is because I just teach WordPress NQs. That's about it, and everything else is just So you learn how to style everything from top down. You get my library of mix-ins, which is a whole library of these kinds of macros, and you learn how to compile a full-on folder, and you end up with a really nicely minified small file, like full-on websites, custom websites built, has like 40 kilobytes of CSS, and that's it. The whole site has 40 kilobytes of CSS. Everything is styled. That kind of stuff you can do if you write everything yourself. Now, I know that not a lot of you code things, and when you do, it might not be at this masterclass level. See, you can see it's masterclass. But if you want to get into this, or if you want to purchase it at a lower price while it's on sale, because right now for a month you get Hey 30 off, which means 30% off, and that gives you, now for these, it's most of them I have like a year or something, but this I'll just leave open for at least 2 years. You can email me back and you can get back in. It's not a problem at all. I don't charge anything extra for getting back in the course, but I have a year just for security. Like, it's not, I can't have like someone buying it and then have like all 100 people use it for 10 years, So anyways, get it off of coupon, or you can get your employee, staff member, a developer that you normally work with, have them purchase this so you can provide better results, better websites for your clients, and you can have a better portfolio for yourself. You can actually make your own custom theme for yourself and use that for every build, so you know that it's a good website every time. You can do a lot of stuff. So enjoy. You can use that on every product here, every product. So if you need anything, if you want to learn anything, go ahead, sign up if you want to stay updated to all the new future courses, because I'm coming out with more now that these are done, coming out with more. So yeah, hope you like that. If you have any questions about web typography, I'll talk to you in the QA, and that's about it. So thank you guys. I'm so happy I did 34 minutes uninterrupted. You can see that thing is still changing colors, and I did not pause in the meantime. So happy. Did this. Because I took out everything else that I thought wouldn't work. Because I had so many other more notes. I was going through all the themes like Avada, Bridge, Flotsam. That took way too much time. So anyways, see you in the Q&A. All right. Or wait, if you're on YouTube finding this later and the coupon doesn't work, just give me an email. I'll give you like a smaller coupon even if you missed the window. Okay. And links and everything that you need, all the copy pastable stuff will be in the link somewhere. And I'll see you there. All right. Cool. Bye.